Today is Friday, September 20th, 2024, and this is Coffee with Community Services, Alta California Regional Center's weekly service provider meeting. I am joined here in my office with Jordan Eller. So good morning, folks. We will do our introductions here of staff, and then we'll get into our agenda. So for staff, I will say good morning to Michael, and I see Christine and Tom on from Community Services, and Odelia as well. I see Jaslyn and Shauna from Community Services, and Rhonda and our manager Helen. Good morning. And I see our Associate Client Services Director and Community Services Alumni, Kenesha, is on this morning too. Good morning, Kenesha. And from Community Services, I see Jessica is on and Alicia is on. Good morning. My assistant, Zach, is here as well. And going to page 2, good morning. I see Marty and Ethan, and our manager, Michelle Duchesne, is on, and Adriana and Chris from Community Services, as well as Jolana and Damien and Hubert. Good morning, folks. So we're gonna have a fun agenda here today. We've got our Deaf Culture 101 and our Sign of the Week with Michael. Rhonda is going to be presenting about the housing projects that we submitted to DDS. I think that was last week. We are going to get an update from Alicia on our HCBS project progress. We are going to go over the newly released directive from the department about the rate study implementation. So we finally received the directive, and so we are going to be talking with you guys all about it today as well. And then we are going to be talking about, let's see, State Council has their, there should be a law contest going on right now. We're going to update you on AB 3291. We have a spotlight. So Ours Miracle is going to present today. And we have some updates from the DDS calendar, and want to make sure that folks get information about the upcoming Supported Life Conference as well. So a number of different things that we have planned, and I think we will start it off by throwing it to Michael Mercado, Alta California Regional Center's Deaf and Hard of Hearing Specialist. Take it away, Michael.
Hello, all. Hopefully you all can see me okay. Okay, great. All right. Today's sign of the week is on emergencies. I will show you 2 different signs, a sign for emergency and a sign for evacuate or evacuation. The sign for emergency, you make this handshake with both hands. It's an E in sign language, and then you shake it like so. Emergency, and you indicate so on your face, indicating there's something urgent happening. So if you see me or a deaf and hard of hearing client signing this, they're letting you know that an emergency is taking place. And now this sign is evacuation. With your dominant hand, place it like so. Close your 4 fingers, thumb in. Then the split between your pointer and middle finger, you evacuate. Your 4 fingers of the dominant hand move out of the split of your non-dominant. So imagine that non-dominant is the building, and that 4 finger with your thumb tucked in is people fleeing the building. Evacuation or evacuate. So if you were to come across information and you'd be signing this to your deaf or hard of hearing consumer, there's an emergency, we have to evacuate. Got it? All right, good job. Moving on to our Deaf Culture 101. Today's topic is about sign language and its history. It has been around for thousands and thousands of years. Now, to clarify, sign language throughout the world is not standardized. Each and every country has its own sign language, but let's take a journey back in history. Sign language, as far as early as 427 BC, the Greek philosopher Plato, he wrote about sign language communication in his essay entitled Cratylus. He quoted Socrates, "If we cannot speak, how should we communicate?" He then suggested gestures, body language, facial expressions, much like deaf individuals have always done. And this is the earliest mentioned adaptation of sign language being used back again in 427 BC. Moving on to here in America, our deaf history. In the years 1700s century, a location called Martha's Vineyard. It's an island off of the coast of Massachusetts. That particular island housed several deaf residents, and it was a total of 25 people that were hereditarily deaf. Whether they were hearing or deaf that lived on that island, every single person was fluent in sign language, so there was no communication barriers whatsoever. Post office, grocery store, you name it, everyone signed. And then fast forwarding to the origins of deaf education in America, in the year 1817, the very first school for the deaf was established in the city of Hartford, Connecticut. And that is a pivotal moment in our history, because those children that attended that school for the deaf, the very first one here in America, they graduated. And those were the individuals that moved on to the other 50 states and established our now known deaf schools all over America. So those students became teachers of future deaf children generations. Fast forwarding to 1864, Gallaudet University was founded. For those that graduated high school, there was now an option to attend college. Gallaudet University is the only liberal arts school specifically for the deaf in the world. Liberal arts university, excuse me. And then tragedy took place in the year 1880. Conference of Milan took place in Italy. It was the second International Congress of Education for the Deaf. Took place again in Milan, Italy. It was determined there that they would ban the use of sign language worldwide and insist that children be forced to use what we call the oral method, so speaking and lip reading, and ban the use of sign language. And it was detrimental. All deaf schools closed, all deaf teachers were fired, and everybody who was deaf was forced then to use their speech and lip reading. No sign language was allowed. It was physically banned. It was a very dark time in our deaf history. Moving on to what we call in 1960s, the rebirth of American Sign Language. That is when ASL was brought back, thanks to, in 1960, a gentleman by the name of Dr. William Stokoe. He was a linguist that studied at Gallaudet University and was the one to prove that ASL is a true fortified language with its own syntax, grammar. They believed it to be just bad English on the hands, but he fortified through research that it has its own syntax, rules, and structures just like any other language, and deemed it a fortified language. And that is what brought sign language back to America. And it allowed deaf individuals to take pride in their identities of being a deaf individual. And this is why we celebrate Deaf Awareness Month. We celebrate the history of our sign language, because we as a deaf community truly cherish that we have that language available, and it's something that we use on a daily basis. We want to acknowledge the struggles and the triumphs and our challenges that we've gone through. So many people feel that the oral method was the best and only way, but it's not. There is sign language. While sign language can be used, it can also, at the same time, enforce and reinforce the use of being able to speak. So once you have the language, you can then build from that language to learn English and have that spoken and or lip reading way of communicating. My point being is not just one or the other. If you look at the history, we don't ever want to have to relive that history. Both sign language used at the same time as the oral method would be acceptable. So sign language is something we truly care about, and we will always be around to fight for the existence and our recognition of our language in our community. That is our Deaf Culture 101 today. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Michael. I'm, sitting here with Jordan, and I say this is like one of my favorite parts of the week is when we get to get this information. I think it's pretty awesome that we have this opportunity as, a community of service providers and regional center staff to have this every week. And for you regional center staff, like there's an email that got sent out that has that information that Michael talked about with the history. And I was not aware of it. And so I just, again, want to express our appreciation for you, Michael, doing more than just teaching us helpful sign language, which is also something we want, but teaching us about the culture is also extremely important. So thank you, Michael.
Of course, sure thing. You got it. I appreciate it.
All right. I am told, Heidi, that we are doing a spotlight for CRS. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you cool? I made you a co-host. Are you cool if I have you on right now?
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Welcome. The
All
floor is
right.
yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Heidi Samora. I'm a program manager with California Resource Services for Independent Living. We are a nonprofit organization funded by Alta Regional. So we serve individuals that are 18 and over through the Alta Regional Center. And I will be talking about our newest program. It is called Coordinated Career Pathways. And this program was designed to help individuals identify what they want to do with their career, whether that is furthering their education or achieving a career job that they're interested in. And what we do is we provide one-on-one support to help that individual identify and create a path plan of what their goals are, what their interests are, what they want to do with their life. Like if they are exiting high school, what do they wish to do after high school? If they are in a work activity program, what career jobs do they wish to accomplish that is exclusive and not restricted to a work activity program, so something out in the community. And we provide two services. We have a career pathway navigator and a customized employment specialist. So once the individual identifies whether they want to further their education, they will work with the career pathway navigator and they will help them sign up for college, enroll in their classes. If they choose to get a job, they will work with a customized employment specialist who will help them create a customized plan to look for jobs that they will be satisfied in and meet their career goals. And the eligibility for our program is that they're an Alta Regional client, that they're either high school students, so 2 years before exiting high school or 2 years after exiting high school. They can also be in a work activity program, so there are no age restrictions, or within 5 years of exiting the work activity program. And this is a brand new program to the state, and we are also the first vendors as of now, only vendors for coordinated career pathways. So thank you all for your time, and if you have any questions, feel free. I will share our contact information on the chat below as well.
Perfect, Heidi. And again, especially when we have new services like this, we really appreciate being able to do the spotlights for you guys. And anytime service providers are willing to go out there and try a new type of service, we certainly appreciate that as well. So Carly's not here. She's downstairs with the Legislative Analyst Office and the Association of Regional Center Agencies, talking with them. But on her behalf as well, I'm sure she's also very appreciative that we got our first vendorization for this. So right on. Very good.
Of course. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rhonda Phillips, are you good to go for this? And Heidi, you're gonna put all your stuff in the chat, right? All your
Yes,
information?
I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome.
Yes, I am, as soon as I can find my document.
I can share my screen with it right now. Here you go.
Okay, because that's
It's all
weird.
good. All right.
Yeah.
Is
So we
everyone
just wanted
seeing it now?
I do.
Okay, perfect.
So we just like to be transparent with you guys and share with you. These are the projects that we put forward to DDS as part of our CPP CRDP plan. The first one is some new companies that we haven't worked with before, and that's Brinshore Development and Operative Office. And you can kind of see just a little image of where the building will be built, and that is called the Fifth Street Apartments in West Sacramento. You can go to the next slide. There we go. So just to share with you guys a little bit about the site amenities, it will be 8 two-bedroom units with project-based vouchers, which is always a plus for our clients. If this project is approved, they would be looking at lease up to start in September of 2027. And someone that we haven't worked with before, Brenshore, like I said, they specialize in housing and services and amenities for individuals with blindness and vision impairments. So we're excited to be working with them for the first time, hopefully. Some amenities around the neighborhood. It's walkable connections to the riverfront. There's nearby shopping. Bus transit is just a few walking minutes distance away. So that's another plus for our clients. Next,
And sorry, real
next
quickly
is
now. Oh, now Rhonda, we also should note that this is like 2 blocks away from where the A's will be playing, right? This is literally 2 blocks north of the Sutter Park, right?
yes, yes, it is. So pretty
So, and some of you that are
awesome
familiar with,
location.
and some of you that are familiar with it, this is the Kind development that's going into West Sacramento, which has kind of been in the news. And then kind of diagonal back here is the Washington Courtyards, where we have had housing for our clients since the 90s, set aside in Washington Courtyards. Primarily, that's used by service coordinators and families in our Woodland office. But very excited. This was a project that was given, the information was given to us through the Housing Authority in Yolo County, and they're the ones that set up the partnership, and we really hope that this is one that the department is going to support. We put it down as our top priority.
We did. And I think that it will be a good partnership moving forward as well because they are partnered with the Yolo County Housing Authority. And so, yeah, hopefully that works out and will produce some more set asides for us in the future as well. The next one that we put forward is Mercy Housing. This is not built yet. This is just a little rendering from the architect of what they believe it'll look like based on their materials. Want to flip? There we go. So this one, exciting news, is Pleasant Grove Apartments in West Roseville. But have been trying to get a project, been working on all year, trying to meet developers and work with Roseville Housing Authority to get connections, and we finally got connected and found out that Mercy was doing a project in West Roseville, and so we were able to put this forward to DDS. We'll see what they say, but this is 10 units at 30% AMI in phase 2 of the project. Phase 1 is already under construction, so there would be 4 one-bedrooms, 4 two-bedrooms, and 2 three-bedrooms, and they would look at lease up starting in March of 27. Some site amenities, they have a community building clubhouse with kitchen. They're looking at providing adult education and some basic skills classes, health and wellness classes, and some other activities that they haven't pinpointed yet, but that will be focusing on community engagement. And that is also walkable to shopping, parks, schools. Great location. There's a lot of other construction kind of going in that area. So I kind of continue to see that that's probably going to expand some more. Let's see. And then the third project we put forward, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Oh, okay. The third project we put forward to DDS is also with Mercy Housing. It's marked phase 2, but we would actually be phase 1. That was just like their little, I don't know what you call it, thing that they shared with us. Can you flip? There we go. So this would be a little bit of a different project for us. This would be a seniors apartment located in Davis. So senior housing, it would be 10 units with project-based vouchers, 8 one-bedroom units, and 2 two-bedroom units. And the lease up with that would be expected to be in November of 27. They have laundry in each of the buildings for phase 1 and phase 2 instead of having to go to like an outside laundromat. They also have a community room with kitchen, thoughtful outdoor space around the neighborhood, hospitals nearby, walking distance to public transit. There's nearby shopping and groceries. If we get this one, this will be our first senior project for our regional center.
All right. Thank you. I wanted to see if anyone had any questions. We submitted these to the Department of Developmental Services on the 3rd of September, and they will be reviewing them along with some of our other projects that we've put forth that we've talked about with you in previous weeks. So thank you, Rhonda. Rhonda was charged with finding a project in Placer County. We have had so much community stakeholder input about, people appreciate the developments that we are doing in Sacramento. However, can we expand and do more developments outside of downtown Sacramento area? So I'm very happy to bring a project to Roseville, very happy to bring a project with a senior component to Davis as well. The Department of Developmental Services has already supported one senior housing project for people with developmental disabilities. So if this one gets approved, it would be the second one in the state. And as we have continued, aging service providers and clients themselves, we want housing opportunities for people for the continuum of their life. So very good. I know it's very hard, Rhonda. We're learning a lot about housing and figuring out all of this stuff, but we've got great partners that we work with. Our housing access services really support us as we look at getting all of these projects filled with clients. All right. I would like to see if I can throw it over to Alicia just real quickly. I think I saw her on there. To talk briefly about where we're at with the HCBS.
Good morning. It'll be pretty brief. So, as you all know, we were working on doing assessments at our care homes, day programs, employment programs from December until the end of August. All of our assessments were finished on August 20th. And we had a few programs as of August 20th, maybe 5 or 6, that were in what we call remediation, meaning they needed extra support to become compliant with the final rule. And as of yesterday afternoon, all of those programs are now compliant. So we are 100% compliant with HCBS regulations until the new year rolls over.
Awesome. Thank goodness. I see Marty's on here too, shaking her head. You guys have been working so hard, the HCBS team, service providers, you guys have been working so hard to be responsive to our staff so that we could get, to a point where we are completed here. So just really appreciate all the hard work. And we're now looking at what the next phase of HCBS is going to look like. What are the, reviews going to be? And so we're working collaboratively with the Department of Developmental Services and a very large work group with the Association of Regional Center Agencies. So hopefully we'll be able to provide some updates for folks in the future about that as well. But in the meantime, awesome job meeting all of the deadlines, and I'm very pleased with how things have worked out. All right. And let's see if I could throw it over to Hours Miracle to do the next spotlight.
Nice. Little echo.
No, you sound great.
Okay, cool. Hi, we're Our Miracles. We are specialized digitalized training program. I'm actually going to pass it over to Denzel to tell you all a little bit about us, and then I will tell you about our services and the process.
Okay. Can everyone hear me pretty well?
You sound great, Denzel.
All right. Okay. So here we go. Good people. I want to take you on a journey. Come with me on a journey. It's 2017 and we are working with a youth group who have never been a part of any digitalized service. They have never touched a computer. They have never, they've only have had admiration to get on the internet and surf the web and be a part of the digital community. They wanted to be more independent. So we volunteered and we put together a workshop. We went into an underprivileged, underserved community in an apartment complex where we put together a small group of youth from 15 to 18, some little over in age. But we've seen the need and we've seen the call of action to not only create a bridge between the DDS community, but also to champion inclusion, because we've seen the disconnect. And so we're in this workshop and we're seeing these the younger kids just kind of get more excited about just having some accessibility. And we brought in specialized equipment to keep them connected to the technology. And it gave us a sensation that everyone should have this. This is something that everybody should be, connected to. And then I want to bring you guys to 2000. When did COVID first start? The end of 2019, beginning of 2020.
This is beginning of 2020.
Okay, beginning of 2020. And then that whole thing was crazy. And so you got folks who are disconnected from family, things like telehealth were needed. And so we decided to really press play and see if we can make a run with that change. And now here we are, 4 years later in 2024. And now I want to pass it over to my good friend, Dejanay Watkins.
Thank you, Denzel. Yeah, so once the pandemic hit, we were actually providing like
Oh,
tech
wait,
services.
sorry, your sound got a little messed up there.
Sorry, can you hear me? No, you can't hear me.
Feedback. Yeah, it sounds like lots of feedback. And a little echo.
Okay. What about now? Still feedback?
It's the same, but we can hear you. It's just a little rough, but I'd plow forward.
Okay, so yes, COVID happened. We were providing services to some care homes with who needed access to like telehealth. They lost access to their families. People weren't coming around to see each other. So when Alta dropped the RFP for a tech component, we were perfect for it. So that's our history. Just want to give you a little bit of our history. What do we actually do? We provide, and we dropped a flyer, or we dropped our website into the chat as well. And if you have questions, someone should be answering in a chat. But what do? We provide folks with adults 18 and up with access to tablets, laptops, and we have some cell phone stuff in there too, and we have access to like data services. So we provide them with access to these things, rent them out. And then we also, if they already have their own tablets, laptops, cell phone, and they need additional help and support with learning how to use it, getting connected to their families, getting connected to their doctors, getting connected to the community. Our big thing here is we want to connect folks back to the community, because once COVID happened, there's a lot of disconnection happening. So how can we do this if people are still worried about being in person? We teach them how to use Zoom. We teach them how to apply for jobs online. We teach them how to just use the basics of laptops and tablets so they're able to not miss out on the opportunity to continue to connect. So we have a process, and I know we're probably going a little bit over time. Sorry, y'all. But we have a process where once you reach out to your service coordinator and you say, hey, we're interested in learning more about this. We give the client or the participant, which we call everybody participants, we give them an interview. We then they take an assessment so we can see where they're at with where they're at digitally. What do they know? What don't they know? What are they interested in? And then we set them up with a tech access plan. It could be for months, it could be for years, however long we all, the participant and ourselves, decide that they need to learn what they're interested in learning. And then we provide the services. And then the last thing I'll say is what this could look like, because this is the individual and family support. So this could look like mom pays for bills for a participant, and but mom doesn't have access to laptop, or she doesn't know how to use the laptop. So someone would call us and say, hey, can you teach this family how to use, they have a laptop, they don't know how to use it, or maybe they need access to one. Can you teach them how to use it so mom can continue helping their son or daughter paying bills or reaching out to doctors or using emails, vice versa. And feel free, Dee, to come in if you have something to add. Vice versa, if it's a participant who's interested in learning about how to connect to like classes, or they want to do anything you can think of when it comes to accessing things online, we just teach them how to use the tech so they're able to do the things they want to do. All right. Any questions? If you do, pop them in the chat. We'll definitely add them. We'll get them answered. And Dee, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes. Lastly, we want to stress the importance of tech etiquette. We recognize the severity and the dangers of the internet, so we want to teach a component that we call a tech etiquette. That is anything that's personal to the participant and the safety of their account information, emails, personal emails, passwords, things of that nature, cybersecurity.
Excellent. Well, thank you both very much for presenting. Thank you for putting your information there. It's been a pleasure getting the opportunity to, have you guys respond to the request for proposal. And it's so neat to see, these years later and the service, up off the ground. And I don't know, you really thought of something different and kind of proposed it to us. And it's just neat to, again, see the progress. And certainly thank you, Jordan, and your staff for supporting these types of startups so that we can fill in some of the gaps that exist for service delivery for individuals and really help personalize and individualize support. So thank you guys. Yeah, all righty. And yes, you can get that information there in the chat. I am going to move now to the next topic, which is I am going to go over the new directive that came out from the Department of Developmental Services yesterday related to rate reform. So there's been a number of, and I'm going to drop it in the chat. I sent it over to get sent out via MailChimp to this morning to all of the people that are subscribed on our website as service providers. But for those of you that are here right now, you get to see it probably before a lot of stuff other people will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually share my screen and go through the directive and talk about what new information that we've learned in the directive. And then I'll check the chat and I'll check in with you guys to see what your thoughts or concerns are. So let me start by sharing my screen. And none of these are the screen I want. Is that the screen I want? That is the screen I want. Screen one. There we go. Share. All right. And we're seeing, let's see, a directive, right? Yeah. Thank you, Jaslyn. Thumbs up first. So this is the directive that we have been, one of the directives that we have been awaiting. And this is the overall overview of the rate study implementation, including some time frames and information that we were not aware of previously. Again, this is in the chat. You can certainly choose to read it at your leisure, but it starts off by explaining that the next stage of the rate implementation will begin on January 1st. It provides background information that the rate study was presented to the legislature back in 2019. I have shared many times on this Coffee with Community Services where you can find the specific information about Alta California Regional Center's rate study rates on DDS's website. The DDS rate study addressed a number of areas, including but not limited to evaluating alternative rate setting methodologies, the number and type of service codes, and recommendations for simplifying and making service codes more reflective of the types of services provided. The rate study recommended the use of rate models, which identify cost factors and estimated costs for delivering various services to establish rates for services. And again, all of those rate models are available on DDS's website, and Alta has our own specific ones because there is a geographic multiplier that they put in there to raise some more high cost areas in California to give them a little bit higher of rates. So rate adjustments. The Welfare Institutions Code, California law updated what the timeline is, but the most important thing to remember is that January 1st is the final incremental rate adjustment that will be going on. All right. So some things in here that are not surprises, but I just want to go over them again. And there's some things in writing that I hadn't really seen before, and so I want to make sure folks see it. So here, there we go. For the period of January 1st through June 30th of 2026, the quality incentive payment portion of the rate will be based solely on data collection, registration, and validation in the provider directory. So if you're participating in those activities, that is what is going to be what the the quality incentive for the 10% will be for next calendar year. So January 1st, well, and actually all the way through June 30th of 2026. So again, that's what that will be. Now, there will be, I'm sure, other quality incentives that get put in place by the department, but for right now, that is what they have put in place. Additionally, there will be a hold harmless in place. Many of you have heard of this information before, and that goes through June 30th of 2026. All right. We haven't gone down to any of my highlighted areas yet. So rate reform implementation, the rate study implementation of rate reform requires standardization in the use of service descriptions, billing codes, and payments. As a result, some or all of the following activities may be necessary depending on the provider and type of service. So alignment with updated service descriptions, and with that, there comes the possible service and subcode changes, changing possibly staffing or service requirements, and also there's needs to be a discussion about how we're going to handle service coordination. So for example, if you are from client services, what's the plan for updating possibly IPPs if an individual's service is going to be changing through the rate study? So now they've given us some information about that, so we're going to go over it. Okay. So what we know first is that they are going to be issuing additional directives. So each of the different types of services. So for example, if you have a day program, there's going to be a directive that comes out related to that. If you are a transportation company, there will be a directive that comes out related to that. Those directives are going to be coming out, and it's going to detail the necessary steps. Some service providers are not included in the rate reform activities. In those cases, we are just going to continue to be working, with those providers. We are going to be coordinating with providers to make any changes to the service codes, rates, billing units, in the specific directives. And again, many of you are familiar with this, and we've got a number of providers here too. Some of the things still need to get modified, and we are looking for what that guidance will be. So for example, the 055 community integration programs, the 063 community activities support services, they are going to be giving us more specific information in the future about how those programs are going to be modified. So stay tuned. Many of you have been waiting for that specific information. And so we are still waiting for it as well. All right. So we are talking about the alignment with updated service descriptions and rate models. We know that that is what our plan is. Our plan is that we are going to get all of our services, aligned with those models that have been developed. And some service providers, it's already started to happen because we did the bundling and unbundling of rates during the course of the, delivery of the previous rate study increases, because we're now at the final phase of it, but we've been doing it for the last couple years. So in some cases, it's already been addressed, but in essence, we're going to have to finalize it at the, by January 1, what the plan is. So program modifications, directives for each service category will provide guidance regarding the requirements for each type of service, including a timeline and steps to prepare for implementation, which will be applicable to all service providers for each type of service. So my read to this is that not all service providers are going to have the exact same time frame to come into compliance. There might be some service codes that will be given more time. And I've certainly heard that discussed as well. All right, service and subcode changes. Each service description is tied to a service code with subcodes for associated variations. Some service codes will not change from the codes currently in use, while some services will change. An example is for transportation. I know Michelle Duchesne and I have been looking at this. We know we have a lot of aids under service code 875, and we see that the rate study is going to be recommending that moves over, I believe, to service code 882, which is the aid service code. So that's one of those type of activities that we will be doing. Again, the future directives are going to pair each of the service description with the rate model. So you'll get more detailed information about your specific services that you as service providers have. Documentation of agreement. So talking about what it's going to take to make these changes, because some people are going to want to benefit as of January 1 of the opportunity to have their rates possibly go up. So the regional center and the service provider shall complete a standardized form to acknowledge the service description, the requirements that will need to be met, subcode combination, and the rate established by the rate model. This form and instructions will be provided with each service category specific directive. So my read on that is that is the source documentation that you will need as providers. If we switch you over on January 1st to possibly a different service code or subcode, and then you will have an opportunity to be able to make modifications to your program design after January, but we'll get into that shortly here. Additional information that's highlighted here that's new is that as it relates to any IPPs or IFSPs, the individual program plans or individual family service plan, if you are a service coordinator, if you're a service provider and your service is going to change, and for example, it's a children's service that has a tutor and a behaviorist, if there is a modification that might be needed to authorizations or to an IPP related to what that change of service might look like, it appears the department is giving the course of the calendar year 2025 for those changes to go into place. And so, again, some of the urgency and concern was what needs to be done prior to January 1st. And as it relates to any possible changes for IPPs, IFSPs, it appears that they're going to allow an opportunity. And the thing that they keep saying throughout this is for regional centers and service providers, updating IPPs, IFSPs shall not interfere with the services being delivered. Also, these transitions that are going on between service codes, they do not want that also to interrupt any programming with clients or their families either. So timelines of activities, and again, this is all in your chat, but program modifications, and I'm just highlighting kind of the responsibilities here. Service providers, making programmatic modifications as needed to meet any new requirements for the service. That will not begin until after January 1st, and then they will indicate what that time frame will be. So for example, a early autism treatment program, like I was just describing, in-home behavioral therapy might have a 3-month period for their changeover, but it could be that a transportation provider, because of the way the rate methodologies are changing, perhaps they will give them more time. So we will wait and see once we get the actual directives that outline it for each of the different types of service codes, what timeframes they give us, because it's going to be you as service providers and us as the regional center to work together to make these changes. We'll see how long into calendar year 2025. Same situation for regional centers making our service code changes. They're also going to be giving us that time as well to be able to make those changes. So again, as it relates and as you go through the rate adjustments and billing unit changes, they are giving an opportunity for us to make these changes, phasing them in essence. And I mentioned this one a little bit earlier, but something to kind of point out as well is that it also has a phase in of any changes that might need to happen with IPPs. Not an expectation. It sounds like that there's any changes that are made in advance of January 1st of 2025. That all seems like very good news for us because it will give opportunities for us to thoughtfully work with our service providers when it comes to what changes they want to make. I know that this came up specifically during our last provider advisory committee because there was a question about if it's so late into this year that we get the information about how to modify some of the service codes, would service providers possibly miss out? And it appears that the department wants us to try to make these transitions as easy as possible. And as it relates to like the funding and the expectations, probably as close to January 1st as possible that we can. But you can see that they built in some leeway into this. We certainly feel that this will be explained more in depth when there's service code specific directives that come out. So with that too, I want to note that there is a webinar providing history and a brief overview of rate reform. And my understanding is that this is going to be a webinar that is open up to everyone. We open up to service provider staff. It'll be open up to regional center staff. It'll be open up widely to the community as well. And they will be doing it webinar style. So I don't know that you'll have the ability to kind of interact the way we do here. I will not be there. Our board is meeting that morning up in Auburn for our annual board of directors meeting that is all day in the city of Auburn. So hopefully some of my staff can participate in that, and then we'll be able to get an update for folks maybe next Friday on any new information that came out. I'm really hoping we get some of the service code specific directives before they offer this kind of overview so that folks can, maybe ask questions in the chat. They really do want engagement at this meeting. And with that, my understanding is that some of the questions that you would put into the chat for this webinar could be incorporated into the frequently asked questions that the department is going to be putting out related to rate reform. So for you as service providers, hopefully this is something that you would be able to attend. And I am now just going to stop sharing my screen and see what questions folks have or anything else related to that. Any questions, folks? All right, everyone seems very excited about it. I will additionally add that as I've been saying, I'm hoping that we will begin getting the directives that are specific to the service codes out. There has been continued ongoing discussions related to the transportation directive. And so I will just say, fairly certain that one's not coming out today, but there has still been ongoing discussions about that one. Eric, yes, please.
If I thought about adding a couple things, so we're kind of, for folks that are been following this, we're getting into the final laps of this implementation. So I just want to suggest, if you are operating a service that is moving to a new rate methodology, in other words, you were billing per day and now you're billing per hour, or you are, for transportation, you were billing in whatever ways you were doing, and you're moving to a new billing methodology, or maybe your rates were bundled together and now they're separated, or maybe they were separated and now they're brought together, I would really pay very particular attention to what these directives are and what that's going to mean for your program, because that's where a lot of these complications come into. in terms of maybe you getting a surprise in January, thinking you're going to get an increase and not, or how, are they going to be able to continue to pay under two separate service codes? So say a rate is bundled together and you have two different service codes. How does that work in January? These are all questions that could be a surprise if you haven't looked at that for your program. So I'd say pay particular attention on if your rate methodologies are changing and if your service is likely to have new service requirements. So there's several service codes that there, and John, you mentioned it. I just wanted to make sure people are understanding that just because you are compliant today under a model and there's a new rate model doesn't necessarily mean that all of the requirements for that new rate are in effect. And some services are much more likely than others to have new requirements coming in, which could change your operating costs and other things that you need to be doing. It may not be like a desktop sort of compliance where you just fill out some forms. It may mean that you hire different staff or you do different things. And transportation is obviously a huge one. I think what I'd like to say something on transportation. If you're a transportation provider, the proposed rate is a vehicle mile rate. In other words, yard to yard while your vehicle's en route. And if folks could look at their past billings and say go over 1, 2, 3 months, and if they could figure out how much regional center revenue they generated over that period of time and how much miles their vehicle traveled during that time to convert to a per mile vehicle mile rate, yard to yard, that'll better prepare you for these directives that are coming out to know how this would affect your company. So I just wanted to get that out there. There's a lot to determine. I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but if you're a transportation company, the rate methodology is yet to be released and changed, but it would behoove you to know what types of vehicles you run. So in other words, is it a small vehicle, is it a large vehicle, does it have a lift? And how much miles those vehicles run when they're on a route in a day versus your revenue. And so eventually you're going to need to know that number. So just a heads up on that. And I think I'll just leave it there, John.
Eric, I know we've certainly talked about this before, but I hope for any transportation providers that are on, just because you're probably one of the better informed service providers in the state as it relates to the transportation stuff. If you wouldn't mind just dropping your email in the chat for some folks, and again, I really hope over the next few months as this information comes together that you as service providers can also talk and support each other through this too, so that we don't miss things. Like, we want to ensure that every single one of you is going to have as sustainable rates as possible moving forward. And so it's just a time where we want to support you, and we will from the regional center as much as possible, but relying on each other, because you guys are running these businesses and dealing with a lot of the same types of challenges, and looking at now new requirements. I thought of, as Eric was talking about, I thought about the family home agencies, who their rate increase is also tied with how they give the money out to the different people that are part of the family home agencies. So there are some changes, for folks too. So thank you, Eric. I appreciate you supporting, the Department of Developmental Services too, and trying to understand how to best meet the transportation needs of the 450,000 clients that we're serving now through, disability services in California. So
can I just mention something, John? So for the
Please.
transportation, we have a lot of work to do in transportation. I'll say that. I think it's going to be a lot of work. So if you're a transportation provider, now is the time to get involved and stepped up. A little while ago, I created it's an email group. It's like a listserv, so you can register your company and then you'll get emails. You can email the group. It's like a support group for transportation providers. I put my email in the chat if you want to email me. But as we're moving forward, it'd be great to be able to email other providers and just say, hey, is anybody else running this? Or I might really actually like to get some data from you guys to share with the department about what your actual costs are related to like fuel or maintenance. Those kinds of things are things that are really important to establishing a rate, or help explain what these new directives mean. So we created a group. You don't have to join, but it's for transportation providers to try to find a group where we could share resources in the coming. So I put that, it's just a link if you want to register. I'm probably going to send some questions out to that group later this week or next. So thanks, John.
Thank you very much. And again, we have our vendor forums. I feel like we had a great turnout for our our residential vendor forum. My goodness, it was a full room in our Brenda Smith conference room for our in-person vendor forum. So, however, and I think right now too for transportation providers, and especially when we get some of the information about the community integration day programming, the community-based ones, the 055s, I think it was just good for you as providers to get together and have discussions and understand, making sure that everyone understands the changes. And then again, we will support you the best we can from the regional center side as well. That's the big thing that I wanted to make sure that folks got was that webinar next week related to rate reform. Please log in. And then it's a great opportunity because I believe they're going to be taking your questions to get your questions in the chat as well. And then they'll turn that into their FAQs. With that, we've gone through quite a bit and it's 12 o'clock. So I'm going to just drop in the chat real quick. And I know that many of you are familiar with Supported Life Conference and the Supported Life Institute here locally, but there's some good opportunities to hear about some regional center activities. I know I'll be there talking about housing, I'm assuming. And then I know that Tri-Counties Regional Center will be there. I know that the Sierra College Life Project is the keynote, the president of Sierra College. So we're very excited about that coming up. And so you can see that in the chat as well. Again, we'll look forward to talking to folks next week. Hope everyone has a great weekend. And thank you for those that participated in providing spotlights today. So have a great rest of your day, folks. Take good care.